Shabbat Shalom. It's Saturday, December 23rd. I'm feeling a little better today. Well, a lot better. But that's no excuse to. I don't think I'll be touching that bottle of scotch that the guy gave me last night. And I hope y'all forgive me. I'm going to be real glaucoma blinky here. And what really kind of, like right now this morning, it's 61 degrees. Visibility is about 200 yards. Let me kind of give you all a little peek of that. Now you can see stuff beyond 200 yards, but you're not really sure what the hell you're seeing, so that's why we call it visibility 200 yards. But this is so reminiscent of growing up in the Belmont Canyon of the San Francisco Peninsula, the Santa Cruz Mountains, where we usually had steady wind because it was a canyon straight from the Half Moon Bay to the San Francisco Bay. Half Moon Bay's on the Pacific side. And it'd be days like this, I guess we would already be out of school, of course, by now, but this is the kind of morning you'd be going on to campus and there'd be flocks of seagulls on the pitch on the football field. Sorry, I'm trying to be inclusive of my UK my UK subscribers. And it's I'm guessing, based on, don't really need to look it up, my eyes are good barometers. If I'm getting a lot of outflow, that means it's low pressure right now, low barometric pressure. And they say it's going to rain today. I believe them. Gosh, now without my glasses on, really. But I'd like to, just like Cass Comerford's talking about the 50s, he's trying to capture some of that. This will be kind of, while I'm at it, Cass, I remember the last of the beatniks. Cass considers himself to be an Australian beatnik, and actually he does a pretty good job. He likes doing these takeoffs on songs and stuff. I'm sorry, the owner here he keeps running out of. See, most of us, we don't buy anything larger than a medium cup of coffee. And this morning I was forced to buy a large because it was either large or extra large. There wasn't even any small cups. Yesterday, actually, I decided I was going to give up coffee because of the tannic acid and other stuff. And this morning, I felt like, no, I needed something hot. Because it's been this way. It's been, it's been pretty much this way all last night, this morning. And the blankets I have, they're all polyester and they're all kind of fuzzy, and they just naturally kind of grab the water right out of the air. But anyway, I do have very fond memories of growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And there's so many mornings like this, and then every afternoon. You could count on it like clockwork, depending on whether you're in daylight savings or regular time. Usually at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a huge, and that's actually great for growing pods. They down in Big Sur. So why Big Sur was turning out some of the best pot. It was so foggy, and I know from growing pot. Here I'm already off on a tangent, but during wintertime, because it's a winter crop, I got subscribers that say you used to use 12 hours or 18 hours of light. Actually, pot grows in the dark. It's just making sugar during the daytime. It only needs about 4 hours. I always used to grow in winter, and I'd use ethylene gas to trigger them. And all of a sudden, I go from talking about Belmont to talking about growing pot. And on nights where I thought it might freeze, you take a camp stove and a 1 pound cylinder of propane, which is perfect, and you put at least a 6-quart to 8-quart pot on top of that, full of water, and you turn it on the lowest setting. Just as about time it gets dark, and then it will slowly produce this incredible fog and warm blanket of fog all throughout the greenhouse, and it'll run out of fuel just about the time that you run out of water in the pot. And the plants love that. Cannabinol, all of a sudden I get on cannabinol. The resins in the cannabis plant are hydrophobic, not hydrophilic. And the more that you miss them, to a degree, you have to watch out about things like, but fog, they absolutely love fog. It just, good fogging, I would notice it was visible that within a day or so, they would just literally, the amount of resin visible on the leaves would just double. And so I actually kind of look forward to those nights when it would, and from observing them, pot grows best between about 40 degrees and about 55, 60 degrees. 70's pushing it. If it actually starts to get to be 70 degrees outside of a greenhouse, I know that I've got to then vent the greenhouse, open the door, and if need be, cut a hole in the wall, because I use the same frames, but would put a new plastic skin over it every year. I've developed all kind of very inexpensive techniques for this, but that same sheet of plastic they used to sell for, like a 10 by 25 or something like that, sell for $3 and change. It's running probably $25 and change. So it was a magical time in life back in the 60s and 70s. That's where I was wanting to mention the Cass. That's where I took off on a tear there. Cass, I remember in summer of 64 going up into the area that they converted into a bunch of shishi shops and stuff like that, and Shang Yuan restaurant. I like that place, love that place. Me and my sister-in-law would often go there. My sister was, I think it's a lot of the way that my sister-in-law was dressing her. She was not, she was in charge of the, of purchasing. She dressed me very nattily. That's Nattily, in a very natty, sharp fashion. And then she dressed my sister, who was only 2 years older than me, dressed her like a little old woman. Gave her how she was. I think she was just straight up jealous. and stuff. Got her like a hairdo like some old lady instead of going their natural hair. And but I remember going to you know the City Lights bookstore, which was the last, like one of the last big remnants of the whole beatnik scene, and where you could get your Lawrence Ferlinghetti and all your, you know, and the Haight Ashbury wasn't hippie yet. This is to Mr. Cass Comerford in Australia. It's probably evening on Sunday or something there by now. And I remember seeing the last of the American beatniks before they turned into the fascist hippies. Actually, I think I may go a little longer here, because this is an important time in history. Because in the 60s, there were at least 4 generations of young people. We started off with what we call the crew cut crowd. And believe it or not, if my dad took me to get a haircut, he took me to Mr. Walsh, and it ain't spelled the way you think it is. It's like WOLZC something. But it's pronounced Walsh. And adult men was 50 cents. Boys were 25 cents, but you got the same haircut, which was a good scalping, called a burr cut, like you in the military, because that's what most of Texas called for, was very short hair during summertime. You really didn't want to have long hair, because you'd only like little rich sissy boy kids could have long hair in summertime in Texas. The rest of us, we all got burr cuts, 25 cents. Now, if I made the mistake of like spending my own work money and going to some, that sure as shit, he'd give me one of them crew cut things where they leave that row of hair in front, like you have bangs or something, and then you got the grease. Oh gosh, those were horrible days. We had to use this stuff called butch wax or pomade and stuff, and I hated that crap. I was kind of glad to see the 60s come in, because we completely, they called it the dry look, and we males hated. Let me even give you a little, for those of you of a mature age, you may remember the word antimacassar. You've been in homes in which they have very fine, high back sofas and so on, but all armrests and all the backs were covered with what's the term? Like special kind of lacy items and stuff, and they were called antimacassars. That's because men used to wear macassar oil in their hair, and it would be on their hands, and so therefore you had to have protection between that hand and a fabric sofa. Back in the day, almost nobody had leather sofas, and you had to have, in case they leaned their head back or their head touched the sofa, you needed to have a piece of cloth there, and those things were usually frequently pulled off and washed on almost a daily basis if you had dandies over. I think that's my dad did make one statement regarding religion, was that I may have already told you, he wasn't fond of Bible salesmen, because, well, maybe that's a whole other story. But, it was a strange time to be alive. It really was. Things were changing so rapidly, and I wanted to, especially because that's going to be the title of this morning report, is I want to make it clear that I am probably might be a little closer to the beatnik than the hippie. I missed the summer of love in San Francisco. I didn't get there till 68, 69, so on. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did miss it. Because from what I understand, it was like just one big, communist, uh, free love, sexual experimentation, same sex. That was considered kind of normal in the summer of '67. When you had idiots like Timothy Leary, who was like drinking LSD right out of a bottle, not knowing anything about the fact that it's really dependent upon the amount of serotonin in your brain, or that your brain can synthesize. And I may post that up on. I'm going to post the anthem to my generation, which didn't come out till a couple years later, but it's from Tower of Power out of Oakland, and it's called "What Is Hip?" Because in '68, because we saw what a bunch of little fascists the fucking hippies were. Your standard, you had to have, they were so conformist. That's why I developed my own kind of weird, unique style of dress and stuff. I'd pick out odds and ends. I got the surplus store or here or there. But, you had to have like the fucking hippie headband, the Jesus sandals, the tie-dye shirt. And I told you, they wouldn't tie-dye anything bigger than a large. They hated big men because big men represented authority and cops and stuff. You a narc, man? It's always the narc's always like the coolest little, tiniest little guy with the longest hair. And so, 1968, there was another huge shift in this country. We broke away from the hippies. They all had their little red Mao book. They go around spewing. They used to play this game, this kind of like, oh man, I could say something cooler than that. Somebody go like, we should give it. You have a tiny dick. Man, we should just all give it back to the Indians who had no concept of property ownership. I think even Sitting Bull said, the land, the soil belongs to God. That's on record. That's his testimony when he was negotiating. He didn't say anybody could own it. But we became the what is hip generation. I'm one of the new breeds smoking only the best weed. Tell me, brother, what is hip? As in, don't tell me what is hip. I shall decide what is hip and what is not hip. That's the essence of my generation. And we really prevailed for a long time there. We went our separate ways while they went off into communal and collectivist, dictatorial regimes around the country and shit. No. We would be, more closely identified. No, battery saver mode turned on its own. Screw that. I had it off. This thing's got a mind of its own. Don't need to conserve the battery when the battery's fully charged. So, go to community posts and I'll put up to Tower of Power. Or even better, look it up and read because that's really what it's saying. If you really understand the song, making the scene, being seen. But in reality is, he's not really asking, tell me what is hip. That's being sarcastic. It's really saying, don't tell me what's hip. I shall decide that. So that was the major schism between those of us who were independent thinkers and those who were just the same old conformist hippie, recite from the, Chairman Mao's Red Book and violent overthrow. Please remember that I was just a few miles away from the Weather Underground's bomb-making house in Palo Alto that fucking blew up. You know, they're endangering all their neighbors. Yeah, they were such. There's a movie out starring Robert Redford in which he's, he's falsely accused of a bank robbery that's tied to the Weather Underground. So we didn't want to have anything to do with people who would hijack. Actually, the term was skyjack, not hijack. If you're old school like me, you'll see that the first few thousand times that the word was used in the skyjacking of a plane, which was frequently out of San Francisco International Airport, just a few miles from where I lived. Like, take me to Cuba. Oh yeah, you're gonna go to Cuba and get fucked in the ass by every motherfucker there. You're gonna give them a, sure. Gonna give them a fully insured, used American plane. See, we sell our new planes overseas and then we buy them back used. That's how American Airlines have operated since back in the day. So please listen to, because I'm sick and tired of fucking 3 guitars and a drum kit. Fuck that shit. You know, Tower of Power, Chicago Transit Authorities, and other like that were something I listened to a lot because they threw in something extra, some brass. If you had steel drums in there, something like that, anything other than the same old 3 guitars, 1 lead vocalist, and a drum kit. I'm telling you the truth, I'm sick of guitars, listening to guitars. I mean, what a limited, I don't care what you guitar aficionados think. I find the instrument has been played to death, and just because, they're cheap and readily available, and because you can figure out how to play it in a day or two, play a few chords, learn the 3 basic, rock and roll chords in a day or two, that don't mean it's a great instrument. Far from it. So that's been this morning's report, where we're still experiencing some really humid air, which actually that's helping me get up some of that automobile. I'm feeling a little stronger today. I need to go scouting a place but we don't know when winter's going to hit. It was about this time, because it is now officially winter, I believe. We're about there. Today's the 23rd. It's winter. And my first winter in Austin, this is when the wind began to howl, the rain and ice and snow began to fall, and it lasted all the way from February, March, all the way into April before it finally started warming up. It was a brutal, my first winter in Austin, I could barely walk. I rarely walked more than 150 feet at a time. And I'm relatively stronger now. I can, but have become intolerant of howling winds and cold ass weather. I just have this weird concept that as an old man who is medically vulnerable, I should be given the option to have a place where the fucking windows are open to sleep, at least at night or in the afternoon, like siesta time. I don't know where I get these weird fucking ideas. I mean, like, geez, most of the civilized world already has it, except for America, where we have this big libertarian, I'm pissing off some of my new subscribers. We have this weird, lunatic fringe that came out of the Republican Party that Ike Eisenhower warned me about when I was about 5 years old. Please, when I was 5 years old, I was a sharp little kid. By the time I was 7, I was working for the BCS Business Digest and Court Review, founded by my brother Jerry, later bought out or forced out by my brother Bill Kruger, who was a complete asshole. So, tell me, brother, tell me what is hip. That's the end of this report. Look on community posts for the song. Look up the lyrics yourself, but you got to know how to interpret them. Tell me, brother, tell me what is hip. As in, don't tell me what's hip. I shall decide that.